I'm Megan Skidmore, and welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts on a faith journey and all aspects of life. Join me as I bring this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I firmly believe we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with asking questions and allowing doubts. When we are more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. Do you know what your core values are? If you come from a high demand background, it's possible you haven't taken the opportunity to thoughtfully consider your core values. Brené Brown said, living into our values means that we do more than profess our values. We practice them. We walk our talk. We are clear about what we believe and hold important, and we take care that our intentions, words, thoughts, and behaviors align with those beliefs, end quote. But before you can walk your talk, you must identify what your core values are. Research has shown that it is traumatizing when a therapist or mental health support person tries to impose their values upon their client. As a life transitions coach, I do not tell my clients what their values are or what they should be. Identifying your core values is like thinking ahead of time. It reduces decision fatigue. It becomes your North Star, guiding you as you navigate new decisions or decisions you've come to realize that perhaps you didn't get to choose in the first place. Click the link in the show notes for my Determine Your Values free guide. It will help you take the first steps to living a values-driven and aligned life by helping you identify what matters most to you. First Friday's free coaching, a confidential group to bring all the questions, vent frustrations, share fears, express doubts. Navigating a new and uncertain reality is hard enough. Let's remove the worry of judgment from others. In this group, I will help you help yourself so that you can be there for your child, family, loved ones, and for you too. Click the link in the show notes to sign up. You must complete the agreement. Welcome to today's episode. I'm thrilled and feel privileged to have someone who I've been following for quite a while, and I'm really grateful to have Dave Smurthwaite. I hope I said that correct.
You did, yes.
On the podcast today. So welcome.
Thank you, Megan. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I feel like the lucky one. So this is our first time getting to meet. That's one of the best parts about this podcast is I get to meet such a variety of people and get to chat with them and get to know and sometimes the intricate details of their lives.
Yeah, I bet.
But mostly I love hearing about faith journeys. And my faith journey took quite a pivot a few years back. And so my heart is in this place of, I call it an expansion, a faith expansion. And I have learned that, and I continue to learn that there's just no two faith stories alike.
I love that.
They're all different. And
Yeah.
I want to normalize that. I want to normalize that your path is your path. Mine is mine. There might be some similarities, and that's great. We can connect on those. And I want to learn from what's different about yours. And because I know that will enrich my life and those who listen. So with that, I want to give you as much time as possible to share. I invite you to start with your origin story. Tell us where you were raised, your faith of origin. I don't like to always assume maybe your family of origin, your story, your profession, all the things that make you, you.
Oh, well, all right. I'll try and grab fruit as I see them hanging on the tree here.
There's no wrong answers. There's no wrong
Of course. Yeah. So I'm one of 4 boys. I was raised by loving parents. I was adopted from birth. So I immediately was adopted into the church. So when people talking about growing up and people talked about being adopted into the house of Israel, I was like, well, I'm like literally adopted into the house of Israel. So, yeah. Was born in Oregon and lived in California when I was a kid and moved to Utah when around junior high age. So spent junior high and high school in Utah, served an LDS mission in Milan, Italy, and ran into my wife at that time
To
I
her.
knew who she was. I was just one of many gray suits. There have been multiple occasions since that time where she was like, "Oh yeah, we were together at such and such a place," and I was like, "No, I was actually, I was never at that place. That was somebody else that you're thinking of. That was not me. Some other elder."
That's funny.
Uh, but
Wait, she was a missionary as well? Is that what
she
you
was a
mean?
missionary as well. Yeah,
Oh,
she was
she
a
was a
missionary as
missionary as
well.
well.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. I
So
thought
she
you
served
said
at
you
the
just
same
bumped
time.
into her
Yeah.
as a
Uh,
tourist or something.
That would have been fun too. We were never served in the same area, but there was one zone conference that we shared together, and I remember her getting up to share her testimony, and just having this utterly random, not romantic thought of any in any way that you know what, whoever marries Sorella Olson, her name was Olson at the time,
Hmm.
he'll be a lucky guy. Like she just seems like she has got it together and she has a fantastic testimony and had no idea that after the mission we would run into each other at a concert, at a Pete Breinholt concert,
Hmm.
whom I love. And Pete and I have had the opportunity to do a fireside together for Lift and Love.
Oh, fantastic.
And yeah, we ran into each other. We started dating. We broke up a bunch of times. Part of the reason because we weren't comfortable with the idea that we had served the same mission together.
Okay.
And after about a year, we got engaged. And we have four amazing boys. The oldest two are leaving on missions this summer.
Hmm.
Uh, and we've lived all around the world. So we have spent, as a family, we spent 5 years living in France. We've lived in Spain. We lived in Rwanda. We've lived in Vietnam. We've lived in Peru. So we had the opportunity to live in a lot of different places and have a lot of different experiences. And I think that's been, you know, speaking to the word expansive, I
Hmm.
think that we've had a lot of expansive experiences as a family, as it pertains to geography, as it pertains to faith, as it pertains to gender. So I love the word expansive as well, and I assign it to a lot of experiences that I've had in my life, and that I think our family has had in our life as well.
Awesome. I look forward to hearing more about your version of expansive. But first of all, wow, I'm so jealous of all the places that you have lived. That
We,
sounds like such an
yeah,
adventure.
it really was. Yeah, it has been a fantastic journey and largely just out of desire. We wanted to give our children
Hmm.
the gift of living abroad, something that we'd been able to do as missionaries. And Marisa had experience living abroad in different study programs. So we just wanted our children to have that, have the gift of language. They're all bilingual, at least.
Wow.
Our second oldest speaks Spanish and French, and then is going to serve in Brazil. So we'll be speaking Portuguese.
Oh my goodness. Lucky kid. Oh, wow. I speak Spanish and I can understand some French. And of course, Portuguese. There's a little bit of crossover, but wow, I'd love to
Yeah,
be able to just. Anyway, this isn't about me and my travel dreams. So you are pretty much a lifelong member of the Church of
lifelong
Jesus
member.
Christ of Latter-day Saints,
Yes, absolutely.
adopted. I love your
Yes.
analogy there. One of the reasons that I found you as a parent of a queer child is you also identify, I don't want to speak for you, actually.
Hmm.
I know that, let's just say you identify outside of the binary box.
I do.
How
And
about?
actually, the term that I'm most comfortable
Uh-huh.
with, one that I came in contact with probably a couple of years ago now, is gender expansive.
Okay.
So you know, there's our
Okay.
word again,
There
expansive.
you go. Would you mind taking a minute and sharing with our listeners what that means to you?
Hmm. Well, when I was 11, 12-ish years old, I had experiences that were outside of the gender binary that I had grown up with.
Okay.
Given this is 1990, 1991.
Okay.
So not nearly the same context or environment that we have today when it comes to
No, no, not at all.
a non-binary landscape or a
No.
genderqueer landscape. And I felt conflict, serious conflict over that, and went to my bishop and confessed some of the feelings and thoughts that I was having. And my bishop was a beautiful human being. He was a grandfather figure to me. So he was not of my parents' generation, but he was of my parents' parents' generation.
Okay.
And again, speaking to the context of 1990, 91, his best suggestion at that time as a leader was that this probably isn't something that should be entertained. And so I internalized that and lumped it into,
He
you
said
know,
you should entertain what's going on for you.
should not,
Should
should
not.
not.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. Not.
Yeah, yeah, should not be entertained. So I associated that with a lot of other things that were in the, that were in the for strength of youth at the time. These were immoral thoughts, and that they made me immoral and not something that I should, they made me sinful.
Okay.
And I lived with that story for a very, very long time, multiple decades. And it wasn't until the cycles of repression finally came off the wheels, and I was forced to re-examine those thoughts and feelings with a wealth of gospel experience now,
Mhm.
as a foundation, that the idea of gender queerness or non-fluidity even came into my knowledge base. These were not areas that I was familiar with.
Mhm.
Transgender was not something that I
Yeah.
had associated with myself as a term or as a label. I just tried to stay as far away from it as possible. And so out of the gate, transgender felt the most relevant for me.
Mhm.
And what I have found in the gender space is that there are a lot of different terms and labels that individuals use. And they're like trying on a great outfit. Like you try on different outfits and
Mhm.
then something fits, and it maybe fits
Yeah.
forever and maybe fits for a season.
Yeah.
And transgender was the only outfit that I had at the onset of
Yeah.
a more expansive journey. And so that's what I used for a minute, but it didn't quite feel comfortable. And so when a friend mentioned to me a couple of years ago that they had seen a sign, I think it was at the University of Utah, one of the health clinics, they had seen a sign, and one of the terms that the U had used, U of U had used, was gender expansive. That immediately felt like the right outfit for me.
Love that.
And because my story isn't one of choosing one gender over another.
Mhm.
It's not a belief in choosing one norm or one expectation over another norm or expectation. It's very much trying to capture everything that I have felt in what I previously would identify as the gender realm. But really, I just more and more I think of it as an identity journey, and we're all trying to figure out our identities, and we all have
Exactly.
different components to that. And expansive is my best way of capturing, and gender expansive is my best way of capturing the fact that just trying to capture all of the best attributes that we assign to gender. We have
Yeah.
masculine attributes, we have feminine attributes, we have masculine ways of doing things, we have feminine ways of doing things.
Right.
And
Or
the
at least
Savior mixed and mashed all of those. Yes, it totally, I
they're
think, Megan. Yeah,
yeah,
please.
no, they're assigned. They're often assigned that
Yes.
this is what somebody who is more masculine does. This is what someone who is more feminine does. And sometimes we put ourselves in that box of only those who identify in this way should or can be or do fill in the blank. Sorry. Yes, you're getting me all excited about this. It's so, so important because if there's one thing this journey has taught me is I see hearts. I see souls
I love that.
now versus a past version of me was more likely to see how, hairstyle or hair color or length, piercings or no piercings, wearing jewelry or not, what kind of jewelry or not. The clothing, whether that's a dress or no, or pants or suits or casual or right, a lot of external cues, really. And
Mm-hmm.
it really was a lesson for me in how much we are socialized to make judgment calls from external cues and not a
Yeah.
whole lot from, seeking out the more internal qualities, which takes a little bit more proximity. And that takes a little bit more finesse, care,
Intentionality. Yes, absolutely.
intentionality. Yeah. So I love how, like, I don't publish the videos of this, but if you were to see what I see right now, I noticed you have your nails polished, and I love that. I'm actually
Yeah.
quite jealous of the color. I've never seen minty, not really lime. It's really a light mint green, and I love that.
Yeah.
We're embarking
Tiffany
on.
blue.
Oh, is that what it is? You never know.
Ish. Ish. Yeah.
But the point is it's what, who says that was reserved for? I was having a conversation like this with my kiddo the other day, and I'm like, aside from rock stars who seem to have been able to get away with a lot of things, talking about David Bowie in the 80s or Boy George,
Oh
and that
yeah.
for some reason it was maybe more acceptable for them to do the hair color, the earrings, the makeup, all of those things. Now we're just embarking in a different period of time where more and more folks are leaning into their authenticity. They're leaning into their inner wisdom, their inner voice, and just like, I'm going to do what I want to do, or what feels aligned.
Yeah. And for me, and again, I'm only speaking to my experience and do not in any way, shape, or form want to minimize anyone else's experience or journey with gender and with faith. I have many friends in the space that have fully transitioned or partially transitioned
Mm-hmm.
from one gender, from one sex to another, because it's what feels aligned for them with their divinity.
Yeah.
And I recall a non-member that I was able to get to know a little bit better, who was investigating the church earlier on this year. And she said something beautiful to me. She said, at a very early age, she started praying to become the daughter of God that she always knew that she was. And that struck such a chord with me of we're intended to be who we're intended to be. And going to the source, going to that divine source again and again and again
Mm-hmm.
will always point us in the right direction and will most often take us away from clear paths that have been established by society. They will take us off of that path. And, when I started this journey at 11 or 12 years old, and then I kind of buried everything, and then it came back to light 20, nearly 30 years later, I was still working with that 11 or 12-year-old mindset. And so a lot of the things that I've associated with expression up until recent months was masculine expression or feminine expression. And there are times and periods where perhaps I'm expressing in ways that people would classify as more feminine, or I'm classifying in ways that are more masculine in terms of the clothes that I wear, the makeup that I do or don't wear, the hairstyles that I do or don't have. And what I have acknowledged or what I have felt more recently is that I'm not expressing to be masculine or feminine.
Mm.
I love some of the areas that people would classify as feminine expression because of the creativity associated with it, because of the inclusivity that comes when I'm sharing that space with other individuals. There are attributes, there are opportunities that come from different forms of expression that are much more divine and much deeper than just trying to pass as
Right.
masculine or
Picking a
feminine.
certain color because it's associated with, or tends to be associated more with one gender over another.
Yeah.
That's really profound. That's magnificent. And it's so interesting. You said something, choosing to express yourself outside of how society has defined. I think it's something that unless we kind of do our homework, we forget. I mean, think about, for instance, names that have been assigned by parents to babies over the years. They have evolved in which name sounds, quote unquote. Granted, it's going to be in the perception of, it's going to be unique to every individual how it, quote, sounds, but names that maybe once were seen only as feminine or masculine were saved for that gender or not. And one thing, we do like to travel as a family. And I remember learning the name Michelle is a very, very commonly used name in America. And I bet most do not know that technically that's a male name in French. It's Michael.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's Michael, right? And just things like that, how it can be so arbitrary and a bit ambiguous. Even colors. Hospitals will release babies in a certain blanket color sometimes, or at least maybe they more so used to. And there was, once upon a time, it was swapped. Girls were put in blue and boys were put in pink.
Yes.
I think in the early 20th century.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
Up until
just,
probably the 50s or 60s.
it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's totally, it just depends on the era you're talking about, the influences and just so many factors, so many things. So I want to back up a little bit. You shared how the effect these thoughts, these feelings that you had in your youth, very young, had on you, that you felt, I think you said some shame around it, that it felt like it defined you as an immoral person because of for those that are not of the Mormon or LDS faith, Dave referred to the For Strength of Youth, which is a guideline, like a booklet that comes from leaders at the very top of our church on how youth, so generally teenagers, what is considered amiable and amenable behavior and actions. And that too has changed over the years. What was in there at the time frame that you're talking about is no longer there now.
Yeah.
So that's what Dave was referring to. Would you mind sharing a little bit more than, one of the things that I just want to normalize is that having questions and allowing doubts is just a very normal, healthy, expected part of a faith journey. I mean, you've been in this faith your entire life, as have I, and you've probably heard that saying, to doubt your doubts, and that a person, we shouldn't doubt or be a doubting Thomas, that kind of a thing. And I really am trying to change that perception. The more I have found that I've leaned into my doubts, it's been a catalyst for growth. It has pushed me to my next deeper level of understanding of the divine and my own self. Yeah. So yeah, I would love if you could speak to that a little bit, how you have navigated those questions, how you did navigate them, and probably, I don't know, maybe still do, in the doubts.
Yes, absolutely. It's an ongoing journey. I love the example of Christ, who we believe obtained a perfect wisdom, and we don't know at what point in his ministry he obtained that perfect wisdom, but love how often the Savior asked questions during his ministry and displayed absolute curiosity. And whether there was intention or not intention, whether he was trying to lead individuals into an answer, he simply asked questions.
That's really fascinating. That's true.
I love that idea of asking questions. I think that gives us permission to ask questions, especially ask ourselves questions with the same intention as Christ. And that was to align either himself or the individual with whom he was communing, to align them with divinity, with a Father in heaven. And for me, coming out of these cycles of shame and guilt, these cycles of repression, first coming out, it was so rocky because something that I had tried to suppress and that I had tried to ignore for so long because I felt it was contrary to God's will, to finally acknowledge that it wasn't going away, that it was something that had to be addressed, put me in a space right out of the gate. I mean, the day after personally allowing God into my experience, or personally coming out, as we use sometimes is the term.
Yeah.
I remember going to God and asking, like, the gap was too wide. It was too much of a connection. I could not make the connection between who I felt that I had tried to be ever since I was 11 or 12 years old and who I was facing or accepting or trying to accept in that moment. And the response that I got from God at that time was that it didn't matter the way that I thought it mattered. And how I interpret that is that I had all of these ideas of what being a good member was like, what the attributes were, what the actions were, what the thoughts were, etc. And here I was forced to confront thoughts, feelings, potential actions that did not fit that definition that I had adopted and that I had lived by for years and years. I had the opportunity to serve in many different capacities, including bishoprics and bishops. And so I knew all the definitions. I knew the handbook, and I just could not connect those dots. And for God to be able to step in that moment and really kind of try and clear the clutter away and say, listen, the things that you think matter in this moment, they don't matter the way that you think that they do. And
Wow.
setting the expectation that I would find the things that truly did matter along the way, and that there was a path forward that was a path of greater wisdom, of greater understanding, of an increase in Christ-like attributes. I'm saying all of this with the luxury of looking backwards now. At the
Yeah,
time, it seemed as though
sure.
my world was ending.
Yes,
It
I'm
seemed like,
certain that was the case.
yeah, my world was ending. My family's world was ending. The only stories that I read at that time, again, this is 7 or 8 years ago at this point, was a lot of broken homes, a lot of broken hearts, a lot of broken faith. There were not a lot of encouraging stories as I first waded into this online, especially within the context of a conservative faith like the LDS Church.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I asked the question, even though it was in a moment of crisis, and that the response given was one of, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And you're going to discover why it's okay as we continue to move forward together.
Story mapping is a key component of my signature program, Life Outside the Binary. When you experience an awakening and see for yourself that the world is not all black and white, you get to choose which of your long-held stories align and live outside the ones that don't. Have you hit a wall and simply cannot figure out what to do to move past, or feel stuck and unsure of what your next move is or how to find it? Did you know the real challenge isn't the wall or the feeling stuck, but rather the story you have written and are living in about yourself and about the wall and about the feeling of stuckness? What you tell yourself about your value, character, abilities, and power to work through and move past problems, concerns, walls, or feeling stuck could be what is really in the way. The thing is, most of us can't see these stories for ourselves. That's where I come in. I invite you to join me for a story mapping session. You will gain more than insight, clarity, and at least one tool you can start using today. You'll remember or learn for the first time how to breathe again. You will start to feel a glimmer of hope and sense possibilities. You'll start to see where your stories end and you begin. Nothing is off limits in our 75-minute intensive. The link is in the show notes. Use promo code PRIDE2024, that's PRIDE 2024, no spaces, for a special story mapping offer just for the month of June. So I find myself curious. Thank you for sharing all of that, by the way. I do 100% get you are now sharing this with more 2020 vision or close to it. Hindsight tends to be that way. But can you share with us a little bit? You mentioned you came out to God. I look forward to the day that we no longer really have to use that phraseology.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of our conversation today, you mentioned that you had kind of shared your identity with God, how you were feeling genuinely inside. When or did you, when were you able to then share that side of you, that part of you with your communities, like your faith community, your family, significant others, in your life? What was that like? I think sometimes those are the hardest spaces to navigate this. Those who mean the most, we want their love and their acceptance. Of course, God is very significant in your life, but it's just different.
It is.
Out to family and friends.
There's something about the tangible, the proximity that makes it, that makes it scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the term. I forget when I heard it, but I love the term or the phrase "letting people in" versus coming out.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to start using that. That's good.
I do. I feel like it's a different dynamic that exists. And so for a long time, I had tried to shut God out of this portion of my life. I had shut Marisa out of this portion. I'd never talked to Marisa, my spouse, about this. No one. I hadn't spoke to anyone aside from my bishop when I was 11 or 12 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'd kept everyone out of this part of me. And so, what I view this journey as that has taken place over the last 5+ years
Yeah.
is one of letting people in different waves and different stages. And I first had to let myself in to the experience, to the journey. And the next person that I spoke to really sincerely was Marisa. It was within hours that I first asked the question and started investigating and feeling really overwhelmed. It wasn't long after that I took Marisa by the hand and we went upstairs to our bedroom and I had this conversation with her and neither of us knew what any of it meant at the time. I mean, looking back, I'm astounded that I even had the capacity, the gumption to just like throw us both into the experience
Yeah.
without any context, without any it felt like the right thing to do. I'm glad that it happened the way that it happened. It has been a rocky, transformative experience for us and for my children
Mhm.
that normalizes over time. At first, there's this
Right.
big waves that are happening. And, when you're in the low lows, the world's going to end. And the high highs, you think, okay, this is totally this can happen. This can be normal. We can make this work. And then you're low again, and then you're high.
Mhm.
And those waves start to get smoother and smoother as you all continue to converge towards a more divine understanding. So Marisa was the first person that I spoke to, which really precipitated that exchange with God because I felt so fragile at the moment. I feared rejection because of these thoughts and feelings. I feared rejection from Marisa, from boys, from my parents, from whomever. I kept it in for so long because I knew the story in my mind was that I would be rejected. I'd be rejected by everyone that I knew. And so I allowed Marissa in on the experience. I allowed God in on the experience. And it was probably a year plus. I mean, our children were fairly young at the time.
Mhm.
Our youngest was probably 6 or 7. Our oldest was early teens. So, not knowing what we didn't know at the time, I held off. I held off just to give ourselves more time to, and give myself more time to explore, to understand, to ask questions before I went to them with this really
Yeah.
messy life
Right.
journey.
Yeah. I can only imagine what that was like 5+ years ago when you took your spouse
Mm.
by the hand and shared something so intimate, so personal. And I heard you when you shared you feared rejection. And that's with someone who you have an established, connection and relationship with. I just feel so much for those that are in our congregations, our families, our spaces where they don't necessarily have that deep connection and yet they want to belong. They want to be a part of group. It's such a deep human longing and to also feel that fear of
Mm.
what's going to happen once that information is made known, becomes available to others.
Yeah.
um, because just like you said, you don't judge anybody. Who you have some friends who it felt more aligned for them with their divine identity to transition more fully, toward one gender or another. I think the same is true of our faith journeys, that what feels comfortable and safe for one is not necessarily going to feel aligned or safe for another. And I look forward to a day where there's an abundance of safe spaces for our queer loved ones. That starts with the individual. And I know that those listening to your story, hopefully their hearts will feel pricked and ideas of things that they can do will come to their minds and to their hearts. If you could talk to your 11, 12-year-old self and offer any advice, what would that be? Knowing you're older, experienced, what words of comfort or advice would you offer?
Mm. Well, I think that I would first and foremost let that younger version of myself know how perfect they were in their current form and in their thinking and how perfectly loved they are
So
right
good.
now. God loves us so much, and the Savior loves us so much. And nothing that we do, no way in which we identify,
Mm-hmm.
in what we choose to wear or how we express changes that perfect love that exists in that relationship. And I would hope to just be able to express that as fully as possible, to instill a sense of absolute acceptance and courage
Mm-hmm.
in perhaps a scary journey that would be ahead of them. The scripture from the Beatitudes, the last verse, I think it is, that Christ shares of blessed are the persecuted for my name's sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I would convey this really well to the 11 or 12-year-old version of myself, but what I have come to acknowledge in my own experience is there's been different degrees of understanding that have come with that scripture over the past couple of years. And initially, I was raised as a white cisgender male in
Mm-hmm.
the church,
Mm-hmm.
which basically, plus early leadership opportunities. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to look at the privilege triangle, like,
Right.
I've been pretty close to the top for years and years and
Yeah.
enjoyed that privilege. And to move from that space to a space of being a member minority
Yeah.
and fearing exclusion or
Mhm.
feeling exclusion, feeling persecution in some way, shape, or form is deeply formative.
I'm really struck as you are sharing that stark contrast between what you experienced for the majority of your life in terms of what you called privilege, and you chose to share your story, right? This is something that I I remember when it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, no person is just choosing to identify this way. Why would somebody purposely choose to insert themselves into a group that they know is marginalized and has less privilege and has more likelihood of being ostracized, or, like you said, not feeling that belonging, not being treated as such any
Yeah.
longer, in a different way?
I think what I have asked that question often as well, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer that I've come to so far that will change over time is something that you alluded to at the beginning of our interview together. And that is that we're all intended to be, I believe personally, we're all intended to be peculiar people.
Mm-hmm.
And within the context of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we've used that word peculiar as a
Mm-hmm.
grouping of individuals at times,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that it happens on a very individual level as well.
I love that
And
distinction.
and in order to become peculiar, you have to make decisions that are consistently in line with the divine. And God's thoughts are not our thoughts, neither are his ways our ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that you're in that lane of divinity, the more likely that you are to verge away from the majority, be that within the faith context, be that within a gender context, be
Yeah.
that within whatever identity context that has been established by mankind. You will gravitate away from it because God has a path for
Yeah.
us that we cannot understand unless we're continually seeking that feeling or that resonance. And what I have recognized is that initially I thought, oh, well, persecution is such a valuable facilitator for development of Christ-like attributes. And so even though the hardness that's associated with that, I had this season of gratitude for persecution as a standalone tool to draw me closer to Christ. And then as I thought about it more, I thought, well, it's actually all of the decisions, all of those decisions that I'm trying to make that bring me in harmony with the divine, that bring me in harmony with God, that cause me to diverge from the norm. It's all of those decisions that inevitably cause persecution to take place because I've now diverged from the norm. and I have a majority group. And the natural instinct, the natural consequence in our lives is that the majority will persecute the minority. And so the beauty of all of those choices that I'm making prior to being persecuted that leads me to a space of persecution also testify of a divine experience, of a divine desire to seek harmony with God.
Mm.
And it's made me extremely, when persecution comes, when exclusion comes, even when those fears of those things come, there is a part of me that gives thanks as a sign that I'm simply trying to live a divine experience. And if the world fails to understand or align with how I'm living, then I'm not alone in that journey. And that Christ is the perfect example of one who every day woke up and lived outside of the norm and expectations of his geography, of his religion, of his time and place.
It's true.
So I'm deeply grateful for persecution. And do I wish that it existed? I wish that we were able to all live in the perfect harmony that we hope will exist one day. But for the time being, I have a greater understanding and appreciation of Christ's words, blessed are the persecuted for my name's sake, because we're all intended to walk that path in some way, shape, or form. It's not unique to any category of individuals. It will happen to us all if we're actively seeking a divine path.
Wow, that's some great insight. I appreciate you sharing your take with us. That's a lot of food for thought. Yeah. Well, one question that I love to ask to kind of wrap it up for all of my guests is, I purposely picked the name of this podcast. It's a phrase that we hear, especially if you've grown up in your faith community, to give testimony or to bear witness of things. And so I purposely dropped the A because I think I've learned, I don't know, I have learned I know a lot less than I used to think I knew. And a lot of the things that I used to think I knew, I just don't know, at least to the extent that I used to. Anyway, so my question is, what does it mean to you to live beyond the shadow of doubt?
That's interesting, Megan. The first thought that comes to my mind, and perhaps it was prompted by what you just shared, was that when I was a bishop, I was amazed, I was startled to have individuals coming into my office and confessing because they had doubts. They didn't know the way that they thought other people knew that the Book of Mormon was true scripture, or that Joseph Smith was called as a prophet of the restoration, or that whatever aspects of their faith that they were hearing that other people knew beyond the shadow of doubt, they could not say the same. And so they felt a need to come and confess.
Interesting.
And I would, as lovingly as possible, express a formal welcome to the club. Like, you might think that other individuals don't have doubt, but it's actually impossible. Like, that's the whole purpose, the whole intention of us to be here. And so when I hear the phrase today, the shadow of doubt, I think about living in the shadows. And when I think about my own faith journey, when I think about my own identity journey, there are times and seasons, this is not past nor present, neither past nor present, where I choose to live in the shadows. I choose to hide. I choose to shrink. I choose to interact with doubt in a way as though there's shame and there's guilt associated with that. And so I think of that as being in the shadows of doubt versus what has happened in my own life and my own experience with my identity journey of only being able to live in that shadow for so long, only being able to reside in that darkness for so long. And finally stepping into the light of doubt, the light of not knowing, the light of being able to say, God, this doesn't make sense to me. Can you please help me connect some dots here?
Mm-hmm.
And at times, having those dots connected when I ask for them. But most of the time, receiving the acknowledgement of, you know what? It's great that you have these questions. It's fantastic. You're going to figure them out. We're going to figure them out together as we move forward.
That's
But
great.
there is a lightness associated with that acceptance and that acknowledgement that brings me peace, that brings me stability. It's a play on words,
It totally is. Yes.
but living
Yes.
without a shadow of doubt, for me, that is living within the lightness of doubt. That
I love
is
I love
the
the double
radiance.
meaning. I love the double meaning. It's a lightness as far as like your burden is lifted, but it's
Yes.
also a lightness of enlightenment and
Yeah.
insight. And I love how you said it's your thoughts were we're going to figure this out together. Those are great questions. And I really think God is not surprised when we have these questions.
Thinking of like darkness and lightness as well. When I'm in a shadow space, I'm really fascinated by this now. When I'm in a shadow space, I only, and I'm in a shrinking space, I really only perceive myself and my stories. Like there's this, like,
Definitely.
I'm to the point that I'm even excluding God often, and I'm
Mhm.
just living within my own thoughts, my own fears. And when I'm back in a light space, I'm able to see everyone around me. I'm able to see God and everyone else. And that is a Christ-like space in that it's a space of connection. It's a space of inclusivity. It's a space where we recognize that the things that I'm dealing with, they might be my own unique flavor of things, but there is a commonality to my experience and then the person next to me's experience that all unite us.
Mhm.
And an acknowledgement of both the uniqueness of our journey, but also the universality of our journey. Uh,
Yeah.
and and the lightness gives exposure to that. It gives exposure to
Mhm.
the fact that we are all connected. We all are recipients of a divine inheritance, of divine love, of divine inclusion. So, yeah, thanks for asking the question. I
Absolutely. I love that. Our journeys, there's uniqueness to them, but there's also universality to them. That's
mhm,
great. I really love
yeah,
that. This has been such a fantastic conversation. I've really learned a lot from you, and I know our listeners will as well. And I just want to thank you again for being willing to be open and vulnerable and authentic about your experience. I truly, truly believe the more that we talk about these things, it destigmatizes them, it just normalizes them, it helps kind of dissolve the stories that we have currently about this experience. And I love, love, love your advice that you would give to younger David, that you are, continue to be perfectly made. And I think that is the greatest message for any of us, that universality and that uniqueness. Those are both they don't cancel one another out, right? We can hold one in each hand, and that's one of the beautiful parts of this journey. Thank you. I like to, for our guests to get to know I'm sorry, our listeners to get to know my guests a little bit better. So I have a few for fun questions, and I'm just looking for one word answers, one or
deal,
two word
deal.
answers. Okay.
All right.
Tell us your favorite book
Favorite book. Oh my goodness.
or
Um,
a favorite book. It doesn't have to
a
be.
favorite book. Yeah, I'm like, oh man, what have I read recently that
Yeah.
really uh what happened to you?
Okay.
This is by Oprah and doctor that I'm not remembering right now.
Sweet. I love that. If you think of it, tell us. If not, now
Okay, deal.
those listening have their homework. Would
Yes.
you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Ooh, I'm kind of a sneaky extrovert.
Okay, sneaky extrovert. I love it. And who's your favorite artist?
Hmm. Van Gogh comes to mind.
Okay. And are you a night owl or a morning lark?
Oh, I'm a morning lark.
Hey, are you? That's great. Wish I was. Do you
Uh,
have celebrity crush?
Celebrity crush.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. I've always had crushes on leading older ladies. So like the Golden Girls are like
That's
they're
awesome. Those are
yeah,
some good ones.
yeah.
They just don't make them like they used to, those sitcoms.
Blythe Danner, Julie Dench, like you, like
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yes. Love them. And do you do still or carbonated water or do you like diet
Oh,
soda?
carbonated. There's
Yeah,
no other water. There's
that
only
doesn't
carbonated
that
water.
doesn't surprise me. If you've lived abroad for as many years, that's
Yeah.
generally what you drink. And then finally, the furthest place you've traveled. I don't know what you're gonna.
Oh man, the
You've
furthest
probably
place
been
that I've
around the
traveled.
entire world, the entire globe.
The furthest place that I've traveled in terms of feeling was definitely Rwanda. Rwanda was the biggest stretch.
Awesome. Did
But
you live there or was a
yeah, we
visit?
lived there for 3 months. We lived there for 3 months.
Okay. Wow. Well, if folks had questions for you
Hmm.
or wanted to
Yeah,
reach out to
yeah.
you in some way, connect with you, what would be the easiest way for them to do that?
Probably my Instagram,
Okay.
David Smurthwaite, writer,
Okay.
would be the easiest way to reach out to me.
All one word. Yes.
David Smurthwaite _ writer. I'm pretty
Okay. I'll
sure.
leave that. I'll leave that in the show notes. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much
Megan,
for your
thank you
time
so
today.
much. Yeah, thanks for great questions. And yeah, I'm going to be thinking about shadows and light for
Good.
days to come.
That's awesome. I love it. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a great day.
Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is part of the Dialogue Journal found at dialoguejournal.com. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." Hopeful Spaces is a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. It's a free monthly parent, ally, or caregiver support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. Email chc@dallashopecharities.org for more info. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.